Hi guys, my name is Destiny and welcome back to another video in the to-do list using Django and React tutorial. And in this one, we're going to go ahead and start working with adding a new to-do from the client side and no longer from the admin section. That's what we're going to be doing. Do make sure to drop a like on the video. Consider subscribing, as it really means the world to me. If you check out the description, you will see that I have a couple of courses that might help you become a better Django developer. Do make sure to check them out, and enrolling in one of them will really mean the world to me. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to open up my code editor again, and now we need to write a new code to do all this. Initially, the best way to do this in React is to write all your use state at the top of the page over here that will define variables. Then you could go ahead and start writing your function. But for the sake of this tutorial, let's just define our use states wherever we want for now. So I'm going to define a new use state. I'm going to call this one, let's call it create to do. And what do you think is the next keyword that should be there? You can pause the video, you can try it out, you could go back to the next tutorial, but just try to get the next keyword that should be there. So it's set create to do, as simple as that. And this one is going to be a little bit different from the last one, because in the last one we just added in an array, and I told you guys that when you add in an array like this, that means the data that you're going to be getting from the API is going to be in an array format. But how about we are trying to create a to do? How about we are trying to send data to the API, not get from the API? In that case, we want to use a dictionary, and in the dictionary we need to pass in the fields that we're going to be sending to the database. So the first one is going to be title, right? And the next one is going to be completed. All right, there you go. So why are we sending title and completed? That's because if you come over to the API over here, you can see that those are the two fields that actually needs to be changing or to be changed by the user, the title and the completed field. So had we have a description or whatever that we want users to be able to send to database, then you make sure to add them over there too, over here. All right, so now that we've added this two, what is the next thing to do? Now we need to go ahead and create a very simple function that's going to handle creating new to do. So actually doing this in React is quite different from doing it using pure HTML, CSS and Django, normal native view and not DRF. Because if you want to do this with normal HTML, CSS and Django, you just define a form in your view, you create a variable and instantiate the form, and in your template you just list out the form fields, something like that. But it's actually quite different in React, because in React you need a way to actually let React detect what was being typed into the input field over here. All right, so that's the first thing we need to do. How do we do that? I'm gonna say const, and what should we call it? You could call it whatever you want, but I'm gonna call mine handle new to do title. So handle new to do title that the user is going to be typing into that box. And let's pass in a parameter here. I'm going to call it event. All right, and for this one it's going to be a function. I told you guys that we're creating a function, but this one is an arrow function. All right, so in this arrow function, what do we want to do? We want to start off by setting the create to do. So we're going to set create to do. Now, do you remember what I told you? The set to do or set create to do. Do you remember what I told you that they usually do? So I told you guys that whenever you want to call the set to do or the next one that's over here, you can actually call this banana. So whenever you want to call this other keyword that's over here, that means you want to set something to this array. Now I'm going to say set to do, and what do we want to set in this to do? So I'm going to pass in the create to do. Now what this means is we want to pass in any other thing that we have over here in the create to do, the completed, the user, or whatever that we're going to pass in. So we want to set that in the set create to do, and we also want to go ahead and pass in the target or the value of whatever the target name of this is. Oh, it's not showing, of the input is. All right, so pay close attention. Let me explain what's going on. I'm going to type in event.target the name, and want to grab the event.target the value. Okay, so what does this mean? Now, I'm going to use an input field to explain this. So we have an input field like this, right? We have an input field like this. Now we're going to have a name attribute here. Let's say this name is going to be called title. Now, when we have this name title, we're also going to have a value attribute like this. So what this line over here is doing is this. It's going to go ahead and look for the input field that has the name of whatever attributes that we're going to be passing in. Right now, this is dynamic. All right. So event.target is going to be, the event might be like the input field. Then one targets the name attributes that's in there, which is the title. So when we grab the name attribute, go ahead and grab whatever value that's in the input. That's what this does. All right. Okay. So hopefully you understand that. Let's go ahead and do this so you guys can actually see what's going on. Now, for us to actually see everything that's going on perfectly well, let's go ahead and configure the input field for the to-do. So I'm going to hop down to this place where we have the input field, and we're going to start off by, I told you guys already that it needs to have a name of title. So name title, you can actually call this name whatever you want, but I'm going to show you guys where we actually will use this name to, you know, send whatever is in the input field to the server. All right. So pass in the name title, and you also want to pass in an onChange attribute. So onChange attributes is this. Let me remove, I'm just going to say 1 so that we don't have any error and I can show you guys what's going on. So whenever you type something into this input field, that's onChange. Now, for any text or character that you type in there, you're actually changing the input field. All right. So onChange of the input field, what do we want to do? We want to go ahead and call the handle new to do function that we created. And remember what the handle new to do title does. It grabs whatever attribute name that's here, then grabs the value. So does that give you any hint? That means we need to actually go ahead and pass in a value. So remove this default value. We don't need that. Then over here, you need to pass in a value. And this value is going to be what? Create to do dot title. So create to do dot title. So that's because you guys already know that when you call this create to do, you get whatever that was set in the state, right? And we set title. So if we call create to do dot title, then we're going to grab whatever that was typed in there. And right now we simply set that as the value. All right. So that when we hit this button over here, we can pretty much grab whatever that was typed in there. As simple as that. Okay, so let's just go ahead and let's log the create to do dot title so that you guys can actually see something going on. Now I'm gonna get back here, and it says create to do before cannot access. All right, that's the issue. So we could call this down here. All right, and there you go. This should be working now. So if I see something like Destiny, what do you notice? Whenever I type something new, it changes this. All right. So create to do dot title grabs whatever value that's in here. So that means if you pass in create to do dot title in the value for the input, that means this input has this value now. And when we use this name attribute, we can grab the value that's in the input and send it to the server. I don't know if you understand all this that I'm saying. I know if this is your first time with React or you're relatively new in React, then all this will sound like gibberish, but don't worry, with time you would actually understand what's going on. All right, so I think that's pretty much what we want to do now. Let's just go ahead and set up the button. To remember that this button, whenever this button is clicked, then that's when we want to go ahead and grab that. So the first thing we need to do is go ahead and define the function that would actually run when we click this button. So whenever we click this button, add to do, grab whatever value that's in here, send it to the API. The API is going to save it to database, and we immediately display it down here. Do you understand? As simple as that. So how do we do this now? At the top, I want you guys to pay close attention. It might be just a little bit advanced. So over here, we need to define a new constant, and I'm going to say const, and I'm going to call it form submit. All right, you can as well call it whatever you want, but I'm going to call it form submit, and I'm going to say this is a function. All right, so this is a function that will run whenever we click on the button. Now, firstly, let's just go ahead and log to do added. Now I created this function. Whenever this function gets called, we are going to log todo added onto the console. Now let's add that to the button. So whenever we click on this button on click, we want to run the form submit function. Let's see what's going to happen. So if we click on this, what do you notice? Todo added. If we click on this, todo added. If we click on this, todo added. Does that ring any bell? That means over here we can actually write the function that's going to send it to the server, or to the server, save it, and actually list it out over here in the looped to-dos. So how do we actually do that? Firstly, we need to use something called form data object in JavaScript. Generally, it's not only React, but JavaScript. Pretty much what the form data object does is it helps us grab data and send it to servers. As simple as that. Now I'm going to define a new variable. I'm going to call it you call it form data. All right, so this is not the form data I'm talking about. The one I'm talking about is this over here, form data. All right, this one is just a variable. Hopefully you guys already know that. Now, well, we can say something like form data.append. Then we're going to append whatever field we want to send to the server. Do you understand? Let me show you guys. So we can say form data.append. So we want to append something into this form data object that will be sent to the server. Now, what's the first thing that we want to append? Let's append the user. Now, this user is going to be what? The user ID. Do you remember? Remember when we called the user ID, we were getting the ID of the user. All right. So firstly, we want to append the user ID because, and you might be like, how do we actually know the things to append in here? You need to check out the fields that are in your model. We have the user, we have the title, we have the completed. Those are the things we want to pass in. So we pass in the user. We also need to pass in the title. Do you remember how we got the title? It creates to do the title. And finally, we're going to go with completed. So by default, what do you think? Do you think it should be completed? No, it should not be. That's perfect. We've done that. Now we need to go ahead and send this data now to the server. And how do we do that? So we need to use a try catch to actually send this to the server. Now you can as well just go ahead and run this. But what if we get an error on our way sending this to the server? We need a way to know the error that we got. So I'm going to say try, and over here, I'm going to say catch. So the catch is going to take in an error parameter. And over here, let's just log whatever error we get. So if there's an error, we log the error, as simple as that. Now let's send this to the server from here. We're going to say api.post. Remember when we tried getting to-dos, we did api.get over here. We are using this API that we got from use access that we created before. Now, whenever you call the post, that means you want to send something to the server. All right, so I'm going to say api.post, and I'm simply going to use the same thing over here, this base URL, blah, blah, blah thing. Because when you call the get method on this API, it's going to go ahead and list all this. When you call the post method, it's going to go ahead and create. All right, so as you can see, we have the get method and the post method for this. That's why on this page, you see we can add to do and we can also list to do. So that means we have get, this is the get over here. This one for the form is the post. All right, so that means over here in the try catch, we can do api.post, and we actually want to post to this endpoint over here. All right, now apart from posting all this, guess what? We also need to post the form data. So now passing the form data in here and posting it, we simply tell you Django, hey Django, we're not just posting to this endpoint, but we are actually passing some more data that we want to save to this endpoint over here, which is form data. Now form data is coming along with the user title and completed that the user passed into the input field. All right, and after all that have happened, then let's go ahead and return a function. So after we have passed this to the server and everything worked well, then we can go ahead and console log. Let's console log res.data, which is data that we got. And we can even go ahead and let's go ahead and get sweet alerts now. So I'm going to say import swal. All right, there you go. Import swal from sweet alerts 2. Now we just need to go ahead and say something like swal.fire. What do we want to fire? The title is going to be to do added, the icon is going to be success. You can add in a lot of things. You can add in the toast if you want. I'm going to say toast should be true. What else can we add in? We can add in a timer. We can say timer should be, I don't know, let's say 6 seconds. You can add in position. Position should be bottom right or top right. I think top right makes more sense, you know, at the top over here. So I'm just gonna say top right, and timer progress bar. Timer progress bar, that's, it's gonna show like the countdown time. I'm gonna say that should be true. And let's show confirmation button. Show confirmation button true. That's like to show an OK button, you know, to close it or whatever you want. All right, so we've done that. Let's go ahead and run this and see how it happens or how it works. I'm just gonna pass in get a new PC, and I'm gonna add to do added. As you can see, our countdown is going, and we can also click on OK. How about we just remove the show confirmation button and make the timer to be something like 2 seconds? It's up to you. Just play around with it. All right. Now there you go. Get a new PC now shows up over here. How about I say something like Rick lives in small house. All right. So I have a smaller house and I want to rake the leaves there, and we add to do. There you go. To do added. And we see it over here. Rick. No, this is still in the inputs field, but it's not showing up over here till we refresh this. That's when we're now going to be able to see it. Okay, Rick lives in small house. Now there are a couple of things I would want to do. Firstly, immediately I added to do, I want to show it up down here, and I want to clear out the inputs field. That one is quite easy. All we just need to do is grab the fetch to do's function, this one over here. Just grab it, and we want to just call it down here. All right, and that's gonna display it. How do we clear this? So in order to clear that, I'm just gonna say create to do dot title should be equal to empty string, which means we clear the inputs field after creating it to do. Now let's try this out for the last time. I'm actually running out of ideas now for adding to do. I'm gonna say write perm, and let's add. Where do you notice it gets added there without the page refreshing? That's perfect. And we also clear the input field. And I'm gonna say walk the dog. I'm gonna add. Okay, there is an error. It says 401. I just failed with status code 401. Okay, why are we getting this error? It's actually nice that we saw this error now, so we can fix it. Let's try this out again. Walk the dog, we add to do. Now we keep getting this error. So let's see what we're getting over here. He says request field with status code 401, error bad request. That's while sending to this over here. Okay, let's see what the error is in our server. Okay, it says the title field may not be blank. All right, so I think let's say something like hello and add to do. A to do gets added. We say hi, we add to do. A to do gets added. I'm just gonna add in whatever in here. Okay, that was the issue. There you go, that's the issue. So I didn't have anything in there. All right, so when the field is empty, we're gonna get that error. We're gonna say hello and add, and as you can see, it's all working perfectly well now. So I think that's pretty much it. Everything is working well as expected, and hopefully you guys followed along with the explanation and everything. If for any reason you don't understand this block or you don't understand what happened here, just copy the code, paste it in the question and answer section or in the comment section below, and just tell me to explain it to you, and I'll be there to explain it. Hopefully you enjoyed the video and learned something new today. Do make sure to drop a like, consider subscribing, as it really means the world to me. Check out the courses in the description below. One of them might actually help you become a better Django developer and even land your first job or your biggest job ever. So that's going to be it. Until the next video, mad love, peace out.